Okay, so hi and welcome to this week's episode of Unfuck Your Life, where today I've got Michelle with us in the car, toot toot, toot toot beep beep, and we're on a little journey, and today we're going to have a little bit of a chat around a topic that's actually quite a difficult one to cover. It's one that a lot of people steer away from because they feel either embarrassed about it or it's quite taboo. It's quite upsetting for a lot of people, especially if they've had it in their life in some shape or form. So today we're going to be talking about suicide and assisted suicide and the choice that some people make to end their lives, why they might do that, and how it comes about, how people end up in that frame of mind. So first off then, Michelle, I met you, well, a little while ago online, and we started chatting, and eventually we got around to having some phone calls. And in those phone calls, one of the days you started talking to me about your journey and how you ended up in your wheelchair. So do you just want to explain to people first off your situation around that?
Yeah, so back in November 2019, I was an ICU nurse. I was actually in work one night and I bent over to pick up a pen, which sounds so benign and like everybody drops things and picks things up.
Yeah.
But I leaned over, kind of top heavy, got this searing pain at the bottom of my back. Didn't know what I had done, thought I'd torn muscles. Long story short, that had actually prolapsed discs, so I had knocked the discs out of my back and they were pressing on the spinal nerves, and also one of them was actually up higher and pressing on my spinal cord. Didn't know what it was, so kind of left it until maybe about almost a week later, till it was unbearable pain, and I'd started having other symptoms, bit of numbness down the legs, couldn't feel my legs, had something called Coxa-Equina syndrome, and then I was to basically surgery alleviates that, but there was just a wee bit of a delay by a few days, and then I had some post-operative complications and developed a clot in my spine, and long story short, that led to paralysis, bladder problems, bowel problems, sexual dysfunction, and then me in a wheelchair. So that's kind of a bit of a summary. Like
Whistle stop tour.
It is totally massively shortened and going for hours about all the ins and outs between, but like for the purposes of, I know the topic we're obviously getting to, it's just a bit of a summary. So I'm in a wheelchair, I can't stand, I don't have any control over the bottom half of my body, so called paraplegic. So depend on a wheelchair to get around basically.
And drive a car with hand controls.
No legs required.
Which is extremely cool, by the way. I've never seen that before. That's amazing. So in one of our first conversations then, I remember you telling me that story, and then when we got to know each other a little bit more, you said that you'd actually planned at some point last year to end your life. And when I first heard it, I mean, I've worked for Samaritans before, I know not to be sort of shocked by those things, but for a lot of people that conversation really hits them, and it punches them in the gut, because you think, why does this person not want to be here anymore? But knowing your story, I already had a level of understanding as to why. So what actually, let's think where to start. What actually did you plan to do?
So basically, like during the whole COVID period, obviously everybody was affected by COVID, the world totally changed, and in some ways for me it was kind of like I was at home all the time and it was an excuse to not have to face up to the fact that I needed to use a wheelchair. I had some control of my legs, I kind of hung on to my legs until I couldn't anymore, and even if that meant just being able to stand or take 2 or 3 steps, and then fall on the floor, I would do what I could. So with a kind of spinal injury, what they kind of say is up to 24 months, so for up to 2 years you can have an element of recovery. So nerves take so long to regenerate that 2 years is kind of allowing for the maximal recovery that you're really going to have. So what I was told was basically how you're going to be in 12 months is pretty much how you're going to be, but there can be recovery up to 2 years. So literally up to the 2 year periods, like the day before I hit my 2 year mark, I'm like, I'm in a wheelchair forever, this is it, I'll never stand again, I'll never walk again, that's just how it is. And I'm cool with that because that's how it is. And yet the next day when it happened, I don't know, there must have been some part of me that was holding out hope for this magic 2 year period. And
I can imagine why.
And I guess it's like all of a sudden that kind of harsh reality of the day before I was like, this is it, and then the next day it was like, oh, this is it. And I think I just spiraled downwards, and it was like I didn't know who, like being a nurse for me was a huge part of what made me, and it was part of my identity. And you know, I had just started like doing modules at university for doing my masters, was so keen in like progressing, and it was so much I wanted to do, and it was like, that's not going to happen anymore. I can't go back to, I'm going to be retired in my 30s, medically retired from a job that I love and I'm so passionate about, and so who am I? And then it was like, wait, I can't do anything with I can't go out cycling with my younger two kids like I did with the older kids. I can't do, how do I be a wife, how do I be a mum, how do I be Michelle anymore? And I kind of hit this downward spiral, and like my husband Ross knew how bad I was. He heard me crying in bed every night saying, I don't want to be here anymore, I can't go on like this. I was like, I can't do it, I just can't. And he had to listen to that. And like at the same time, I wasn't being disingenuous or lying on social media, but like it was, if I didn't want to be around people, if I was around people though, it's not that I was lying, but I could kind of shut off that part of me. Like I could shut it off for a couple of hours. All that would happen would be I'd then be home afterwards and it would all hit me full force and it'd be worse. So I just tried to not be around too many people. And like, or if I posted something online, I'd see something and be like, oh okay, and I would post about this or that, and what I was posting was like totally genuinely thoughts that I had and the way I felt about things. But I was not able to. I'm always great about talking things after the fact, but while I'm going through something, I can't be open to the whole world about it. Like I could maybe go and talk to a counsellor or a therapist, but not to the world. And so there was no way I was writing that I feel suicidal online. You know, I just wasn't. You know, it just wasn't what I was doing. And then it kind of got to one stage that it would have been the January last year, so January 2022. So that was me like over 3 years at this point down the line. I was then medically retired from nursing. I wasn't. I was 2 years down the line, sorry. I was 2 years down the line in the November. Then it got to the January. I had gotten so kind of much in a downward spiral that I was like, this one night I didn't sleep and I was like, I can't take it anymore, I just can't. And I was crying and I was just like, I am done. And my husband was fast asleep and I was online and I was like, I don't know what to do. I want to be here, I want to end my life, but I can't do it that my family find me, because how traumatic will that be for them? And in my head I was in such a bad place that I genuinely believed like they'll be better without me. Like my husband can find a new wife who is able-bodied and can do all the things I used to be able to do and can be better for them, and my kids can have someone in their life that's better than what I am. And you know, like I genuinely thought I was doing them a favour. I genuinely did. And I went on the Dignitas website and I'm like, okay, so you need to become a member and you pay a fee, okay, and then you need to have your medical records, so I need to speak to my GP and that's fine. And like the next day it was like I was happy, like I was just content with the decision I'd made. And I remember the next night I'd said to my husband, I was like, I'm wanting to do this. And he was angry and he was hurt, and like no wonder, you know, like I understand it. But I was at the time I was like, how can you be angry at me? I'm doing you a favour. I genuinely thought it was like, he's like, it's so selfish. And I'm like, how's it selfish? It's the most selfless thing I could ever do. Like, I don't want to not see my kids. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose the kids. But, like, if it means you can have a better life, then I want you to have a better life. And, like, I just thought I was doing the most selfless thing for them. And, like, I phoned, like, I was like, that's just what I'm doing. And then my GP has contacted me, like, kind of out of the blue to see how I was doing, which was so bizarre. And I just told her, I was like, I don't want to be here anymore, and I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm like, totally, I'm in an okay frame of mind. Yes, I know I'm depressed. Yes, I know that my circumstances are what's making me feel how I feel. But I know that I can't go through this emotional pain and mental torture forever, because I can't do it. I'm not strong enough, and I can't have them finding me. So, like, I've been in touch with Dignitas and I know what I need to do. So, and she was just like, Michelle, you need to, like, you sound totally clear, but you don't just make this decision. Like, it's not a decision you just make on a night. You don't just do that. And I was like, why? Like, it's not it's not based on how I felt last night. It's based on the past 2 years of how life is, and I can't, like, this isn't, and basically the outlook is not, I can't live my life like this, you know. I'm not saying that people who are disabled don't deserve to be alive. I'm saying that I'm not a strong enough person to handle being physically disabled, is what I'm saying. And for me, the only end to that pain that I'm feeling is to be the end of me being in this world, and that's what I've decided. And I remember, like she said, speak to Spinal Injury Scotland, and like the night that I had made the decision, I remember praying, like, God, if you're actually there and you can hear me, like, if I'm not meant to do this, like, I feel like I'm meant to do this. If I'm not meant to do this, I need a sign. Like, I need a sign. And then my GP phoning me out of the blue, but I'm like, nah, it's not a sign, it's a coincidence. Like, I'm praying for a sign and I get a sign and I'm like, nah, it doesn't count, that's just coincidence.
That's not the sign that I wanted.
That's not a sign. I mean, how much clearer can you get? And she's like, speak to Spinal Injury Scotland. And I'm like, who? What? Spinal injuries? Nah, that's going to be people who've got spinal injuries, like traumatic injuries, like car crashes, falling off mountains, like, you know, like really horrendous things have happened to them. I can't phone with, like, you know, like, it's just, you have a spinal injury and it's a spinal cord injury, your cord was injured as well, like, just get in touch with them. And I was like, fine, do you know what, I'll do it just to shut you up, and then I need you to write me, to give a copy of my records anyway, so right, I'll do it. And then I can explain, yep, I've done it and it made no difference. So I emailed into Spinal.
So you're quite defiant at that point.
I'm just like, whatever. But I was like, I'm not upset. I'm genuinely, I feel probably seemed more content than I'd been for so long, because in my head there was an end to it all. And I'm like, fine, whatever, I'll just do whatever. So I spoke to Spinal Injury Scotland. I emailed them in. Somebody phoned me, and I was just like, this is pointless. And I said, you know, I know what I want to do. And this guy spoke to me, Stuart, and I will never forget, he was telling me he'd been in a motorbike accident and was paralysed from, like, fairly high up level in a wheelchair, and told me that he did hand cycling. And he was like, so I went on Facebook and I'm looking for his profile, and I'm like, what's hand cycling? Like, what is this? Do you do a handstand on a bike and you're like pedaling? Like, that's so dangerous. How do you do that?
I can imagine you trying to do
like,
that.
Imagining something at a circus, like a unicycle clown doing a handstand and pedaling with their hands. But I'm like, he was, and I remember he said something about walking. He went, oh, you'll not be walking, you'll be rolling. And I just burst out laughing, and I was like, it was so, and he's like, I'm only saying that because, like, I'm in a wheelchair and that's me too. And I'm like, I just felt normal. I felt normal. All of a sudden I felt normal. And I then was like, it was like an instant, I was like, I don't know how he's okay or how these people can be okay, but I want a bit of that. Like, I want to be, I don't know how I can ever be okay. I don't know how I'm meant to accept this, but, like, I need to be here for my children. I need to be here. And it was like, honestly, I would have sworn on anything that nothing would change what I wanted to do. And then I saw these people, I was on a Zoom, saw all these people in wheelchairs that were living, like, the most amazing life. And I thought, I that stage, or you know what, if I don't get to the stage of acceptance, well, I'll die trying. Like,
Yeah.
I won't die because I've chosen to end things.
Two very different ways of dying.
Yeah, it's like, however, like, I will, that is my goal, and if I meet that goal and I do come to acceptance of being how I am, brilliant. Or if I don't, I will never give up trying to accept it, and you know, maybe I'm not going to give up on life. Like I need to be here. And it was crazy, like how quickly my viewpoint flipped, and it wasn't that I just felt really depressed and became suicidal. Like, I have had depression for as long back as I can remember, and I can get depressed when everything in life is amazing and going great, and it's not situational. It's just, there is no explanation for why I can become depressed, because I'm happy and that things are all going well, but I just have this horrible sense of just loneliness and despair for no reason. And then it's like, all of a sudden, I don't know, I was praying for a sign, and I got this sign, and then I just was like, I can be okay. And it was crazy because of how quickly I managed to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, that was an instant, I need to not do this. Whereas coming to the thought of wanting to do it was, I had been suicidal since the moment I knew my life was changed. When I had my injury at first, even though I didn't know how it'd be long term, I was
Stay in the right 2 lanes.
Stay in the right 2 lanes.
That's a sign.
Like, I had to stay in the right lane of what I wanted. No, but like, seriously, I don't know. It was, and at the same time, I'm not saying it, like, I understand why people can feel so down, and because the pain, emotionally, the pain of what I was feeling, it was just too much for me to handle. And it wasn't necessarily that my end goal was to be dead. It was just the pain emotionally. It was more than I could cope with. It was more than I could handle, and I felt so alone, and I just didn't know how to go on. And like, if you had asked me before, I'm like, well, do you know, assisted suicide, everybody's got different thoughts and, you know, opinions on it all, and what you believe is right or wrong. And I'd have probably said, well, you know, what if somebody decides, like, literally after they take their concoction of drugs, that what if they change their mind and it's then too late because they've literally done it. And you don't know until you hit, until somebody's physically done it. You don't know. And then I also remember seeing this video of this guy, which I don't know if a lot of people know who he is or not. It's called Kevin Hines, and there's like the Kevin Hines story, and he's a guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and is like one of the few people to have survived it. And he literally said the second his hands left that railing, he was like, I'm going to die and I don't want to die. My family will never know that I didn't want to do this.
Oh wow.
And it's like, and it's scary, but it's like, I understand being depressed and I understand being suicidal. There's so many times I've felt suicidal, but I've never made plans. I had made plans, and I was content with it. And now it's just crazy, because I guess, like, I probably overshare it. Well, you've seen all my social media. I probably overshare about, like, anything in general. I'm just like, let's just take it to a new level, and okay, I'll just talk about the fact that I have, like, I put back, I've got a colostomy, and like, I use catheters, and
It's real life though. It's real life.
Like, I wish I had heard somebody saying I had a spinal injury and I didn't know how to go on anymore, and I did feel suicidal for a while, or I was so depressed, but now I'm not. And like, don't get me wrong, there are times I do still cry, and I'm like, I just want nothing more than to be able to stand up and cuddle my husband, or like to be able to, like, pick my kids up and swing them around, like, and run and just do silly things. But it's like, I think I was so focused on what I had lost rather than what I still had. Like, and it's like, even just the fact that I'm alive means I've got more than I don't have. Like, you know, I'm getting to be alive and be in this world, but yeah, it's crazy. Sorry, I don't know if that's too much at all.
No, that's not too much at all. I find your story so interesting because you talk about it so openly, because I think you're so raw with it, and you don't shy away from any questions either. Like, I don't think there's been anything that I've asked you that, like, you felt awkward answering, or like whenever we've talked about things. And it seems like as well you're you're really comfortable with how this journey's turned out in your mind, in that your identity, although I remember you were saying, you know, like in previous conversations and just now, you were talking about nursing and how it was part of your identity, part of who you are. It was all you could ever imagine doing. And then suddenly this thing that you loved, that was part of you, had been stripped away, and it was so unfair, like so fucking unfair. And there was like an anger there, and a frustration and a bitterness around what had happened to you, and the complications and things like that had taken place. And I remember just thinking though, like we were mid-conversation one time in the middle of the night, and you were saying things, and then like you were telling us this really deep, interesting story about your life and all of these serious things that had gone on and around your disability, and then within 2 seconds you were making a joke and laughing, and I was like howling and almost rolling about on my kitchen floor. And I remember just sitting and thinking to myself, this person has got literally the best soul and such an energy. Like you absolutely radiate energy. And for someone who last year thought that they were going to take that away from themselves, and take that, because I know what you were saying, you didn't want to hurt your kids, you didn't want to hurt your family, but you know that that's a natural byproduct when someone loses someone. It's the grief that they feel, you can't do anything about that. And I remember thinking, wow, like I'm so lucky to have met her, because this almost didn't happen.
And that's the thing, it's like I kind of think it's scary how close I was to nearly not being here. And in the grand scheme of things, I remember like talking to somebody last year and told, like, one of the guys who works for Hollister, who the company that make my catheters and stoma bags, I remember talking to him at a Spinal Injuries Scotland like open day, and I told him, like, you know, I nearly wasn't here and I nearly had gone to Switzerland to just end it all. And he's like, when was this? And I think he expected me to go like 10 years ago, and I was like, January. And this was in like the June, and he's like, what? Like, what? But now look at you. And I says, I know. I said, like, it is ridiculously fast that I'm in a good place now. I was like, but honestly, that charity literally kind of saved my life. I was like, in the peer support, like, it's such a huge peer support thing. They're not trained counsellors. They're not, you know, it's like very much just a peer support. But I was like, but that's like, I'm seeing people living their lives, and like that's helping like to such a huge extent, and like other people can be okay, and I don't want anybody to ever be how I was. I mean, I have good friends, I've got good family, and even still I just was like, I can't do this anymore. And it's scary, because I think, what if people don't have support? What if they don't have the friends and family and everything that I've got? And what if they don't hear people talking? And I'm kind of like, I want to tell my story, because there's stigma around so many of these things, and people feel ashamed of the fact that maybe they have felt suicidal. And whether you, or even just people being depressed, they feel like there's a stigma. And it's like, sometimes I genuinely believe the reason there's stigma around certain things is it's things aren't spoken about, and when they're not spoken about, there's a lack of awareness, and the lack of awareness, it kind of feeds into people then not wanting to discuss, which creates stigma. So the only way to kind of break the stigma is to, I'm not saying everybody should, it's, you know, it's your life, it's your story, what you're living, and nobody should ever tell you, oh, you need to share this with people, because, you know, whatever you've got going on in your life, whether you feel it's big or small and somebody else feels it's big or small or whatever, that's your right to share. It's your story to tell. It's not my place to go, oh, Sammy told me this, or you know, like do you know, like, it's not like, I'm happy, like, every person's got a right to tell their story, or to never tell their story, and I don't think anybody should feel obliged to. And it's one thing I always find funny, when you are like, people saying, oh, well, such and such is famous, they should be saying if they've had surgery or this or that. Well, you don't expect the general public to be running around going, do you know, it's a boob job? Do you know,
by the way,
like,
by the way,
you know, people shout if they want to tell their story, or if they don't, and that's not anybody's right to expect it of people. For me, I'm kind of like, I'm big enough and ugly enough to say it all, and if that helps one person, see if 1 million people in the world go, and laugh and think it's ridiculous. I'm like, I don't care. See, for the one person that might help,
Yeah.
it's worth it. And I want to be able to talk about it, because if I had even heard somebody saying I felt so alone and it didn't have to be, or I felt so depressed,
Yeah.
but I got through it, that would have spoken massively to me. And my biggest fear is, what if there's somebody out there that does feel that way and they haven't heard that? They haven't heard that other people feel
Yeah.
that too, and they found a way out, or they're working towards it, or at least they've got their people in their community that they can talk about these things too without feeling judged. So
100%.
I want to talk about this stuff because, you know, like with my alopecia, I lost my hair, and I will never forget, this woman messaged me and she's like, I've been watching your wig reviews and I think you're a bit eccentric and you're a wee bit, she's like, and she says, and honestly, I just watched your videos and I thought, well, if that person is crazy and they can accept hair loss, I'm normal, so if she can, I definitely can. I was in hysterics, and
It was like a backhanded compliment.
yeah, it's like, if you're a weirdo and you can be fine, I'm normal, so I can be fine. But she meant it in the most lovely way.
Yeah.
But, and genuinely, like, and I was like, I know that she thinks that I'm absolutely mental, because yeah, I'm a wee bit mental. But I was like, I don't even care. See, if somebody can think you're absolutely nuts, oh well, I can be fine because you're a weirdo and you're fine.
Yeah.
That's cool. See, if even that's the take on it that helps someone be okay, that's worth it too.
It is.
Like, you know,
It gives
and
people that like parallel universe almost.
anything that helps. If somebody finds something, they might not identify with who you are. They might not be able to go, like, I don't see that anything of that person as something that
Yeah.
speaks to me.
No
But the
relatability
situation
necessarily.
does.
Yeah.
The situation might speak to them, or maybe it's a different situation, but maybe they see something in you that identifies with a part of themselves, and maybe it's a different situation, but they can apply it. It doesn't matter, for whatever way somebody can kind of take that and apply it, or
Yeah.
if it makes people, even if it gets people talking, like somebody was posting a photo with like a poop bag showing and explaining like they've got a
Yeah.
stoma, like, that's weird. Even if it starts a conversation, that's weird, and somebody says, oh well such and such is, oh well such and such has,
Yeah.
you don't know.
It opens it
Like,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody messaged me and was like, hey Michelle, listen, I've never said, and I wouldn't tell you and I don't tell people, but I've had a stoma for like 15 years, and I'm like, I've known you since I was a child. How did I not know this? Only her parents, her brother, sister,
Yeah.
and husband knew.
It shows the like
And
level
I'm
of
like,
shame,
what?
doesn't it, that people
And
hold.
she's like, just to say you can get granny pants out Marks and Spencer's and they cover your bag. And I was like, actually, there's a company called Vanilla Blush and they actually make special underwear and it'll hold your bag. And she was like, how do you know this? And I'm like, I don't know. How do you know it though? Like, I was like, I've literally had my surgery 4 days ago and I know this already. But it's like, and she was like, oh my goodness, it stops your bag rubbing your skin. And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, see if it just gets people talking about things,
Yeah.
and then other people, and
It
you
normalizes
don't,
it.
yeah, it does. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
These things,
I'm
like, they
happy
carry
to
so
be the
much shame.
person. Yeah.
And it's like you know, when you're talking about normal conversations, I feel like whenever there's something about someone that's different, like especially something that they've been upset about, like a big life change like yours, and when I say like yours, I'm talking about all of the life changes you've had, because you've had friggin' everything happen in your life. I feel like people almost don't want to talk about it as if it's catching, as if they talk about it, it might happen to them.
Yeah.
And ignorance is bliss kind of thing. So
Yeah.
they would rather not be aware of all of the negative things that go on in the world, because if they talk about it too much, it might happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, there's
The
a
other
limit.
thing as well is, like, you could literally have somebody close to you that's one of your really good friends. You might not know these things about them.
Yeah.
Like,
Because they don't feel
my
like they can
friend
talk
said
to you
me,
about
she's
it.
like, she's like, I remember when I was getting married and I was just like, oh, let's go and like look at sexy underwear and whatever, and like you can try it on over your normal underwear, and like, and she was, I don't want to do that because they'll know I've got a bag.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that must have been so hard. And then
How do you navigate that?
yeah, how do you? And it's like, but then our friends, like, you know, but it's not their place to demand that they should know these things either. And
Yeah.
like, it wasn't my place to demand that I should have known as being this person's friend for so long. But it's like, if these things are more openly spoken about, social media can have its negative points and can be detrimental, and everybody knows like there are
Yeah.
things with social media that can be really toxic and bad, But social media can be used for so much positivity. Like, if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't know you. Do you
Yeah, I
know
know.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
alopecia, like, I'd had some, I just mentioned to you earlier, like, I've got physical health conditions, even before the wheelchair. Like, I've got physical health problems that have been life-threatening, and yet I never struggled to deal with them. It was what it was.
Yeah.
Whereas when I lost my hair, physically that wasn't dangerous, but mentally that was the most tough thing I had ever had to deal with at that point in my life.
Yeah.
It was. And yet people didn't get it, and people would be like, how can you be totally fine with like heart and lung problems and being on and off life support, but your hair falls out and you fall apart?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because, you know, we're not robots. How you are physically, you're also look at your emotional, intellectual, social, spiritual part of yourself.
Yeah.
And every alopecia impacts every one of those. The physical to itself, it's not the physical effects that are so difficult. It's how that impacts on every other part of your sense of self that's really
100%.
challenging.
You as a whole.
Whereas, like, for me, heart and lung problems, like, realistically, that would it would maybe impact me socially to an extent
Yeah.
for a while when I wasn't well, but when I'm well, I mean, it's usually a physical thing. And, like, I mean, some people might find that really tough emotionally. Some people might think alopecia is a walk through the park. For me, alopecia was such a difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah.
And honestly, I used to think it was such a curse, and I'm like, what have I done to deserve this? Right, God, what are you playing at giving me this? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And now I think it's one of the biggest blessings I've had, because I'm a better person for it. Like, it made me have to come to terms with who I am on the inside, and that was so difficult. And I was totally of the opinion, I need to learn to accept this, or I'll die trying. That was my mantra. Like, I will get there, or I will die trying.
How long
but I
did
will
it take
never
you to
give
be
up.
okay with it?
I was really lucky. Like, I had kind of done the whole, when my hair, it all went within 6 weeks, and I think that was a lot easier in some ways, because I remember lots of people going, that must be so hard going so fast. I'm like, well, I had no option but to deal with it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I know loads of people who've got maybe patchy loss and just areata, and it comes and goes. They don't know, are they ever going to lose it all, or people who've lost it all and it comes back and it goes and it comes back, and they just don't know where they are. I had gone on to look at the medical information and was on the Cochrane Library reading a systematic review about the treatment for alopecia areata, which includes universalis totalis, and there is nothing medically that's got any statistical significance that could guarantee your hair will come back.
Yeah.
Nothing. Not a thing.
No matter how many
So,
companies try and push
It
that.
doesn't matter what people say, use a shampoo and it'll work.
Or shite.
Like, and then it's like, okay, we'll look at some of the drugs out there that they're now saying work and are effective. What do they define as effective? That 25% of your hair comes back? How's that effective?
Imagine 25%.
Hair. Like, but anyway, like, for me, when I saw my dermatologist, he was very honest, and he's like, so realistically, there are things that we can sometimes try,
Yeah.
but, and I said, I've read the systematic review, and it was like, what? Not many people come and tell me they've been on the Cochrane Library reading
Not
the
many people like
systematic
you
reviews.
though, are there?
And I was like, no, like, I love research, love that stuff. Went on, had a look, crappy p-value, no evidence, brilliant, awesome. I don't want something that's false hope. I said, like, I understand for some people they literally need to exhaust every avenue before they're even willing to get to the stage of now I need to work on accepting it.
Yeah.
And that's okay, and that's fine. For me, medically, there wasn't much chance of anything making a difference.
No.
So for me, it was okay. For me, a wig is going to be my treatment. A wig is going to be what helps me come to terms with losing my hair. And I swore nobody would ever see me in real life without a wig on. Didn't mind posting photos online, but nobody will ever see me in real life without a wig on. And within 6 months, I went and got a head tattoo, and I'm floating around like a mad bald
Last
person.
night you whipped it off when we were in the pub.
Oh, I actually did. Yeah. And that's the norm for me now. I forget people aren't used to
I
seeing
love
other people
people's
just whipping their
reactions.
wigs off.
Do you not love that? People's
I
reactions
just don't
to
even
it.
notice anymore.
So
And
funny.
then it's not unless I do it and I'm like, oh yeah, most normal people just don't do that.
There was someone at the side and they were like,
Yeah, I remember last night I did kind of think, well, those people to the right of us are all like looking, and I'm like, whatever.
oh yeah, I did have
No.
hair a minute ago. I don't now. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
If people are going to look like, make it worth their while, man.
But this shows like this with
But
things
I never
that have
thought I'd
happened
be
here.
like that. I
No.
never thought I'd be like that. I never thought I'd be okay with that. But
And not everyone would.
yeah,
And that's the thing
and
about
that's okay
individuality,
too.
isn't it? You're
Yeah.
saying like you know, when we talk about sort of suicide, wanting to end your life, depression, people's capabilities of dealing with how things impact them as a whole, so like the social, emotional, every aspect of their being, every part of their identity, the same exact thing could happen to me and you, and we could react totally differently. I might have already killed myself by now, and you might not have, you know, in two different universes. And I think you sharing your story and other people sharing their stories are that's the way that we actually get to see into someone else's world enough that we can realise, all right, okay, I don't have to feel okay about everything all the time. Like this is another human that's gone through something that's just as traumatic as what I'm going through, and actually it's helping us. Like I feel okay. I don't feel amazing, but I feel okay. Like I can go on from this.
And one thing as well, I think no matter what you've got or what your thing is, like we might have zero in common personality wise, we might have zero in common life experience wise, we might have zero in common health condition wise, but one thing I truly believe that every single human on this planet has in common is the experience of emotions. So what might trigger you to become depressed might be different from what triggers me to become depressed. You might never be depressed, but everybody's been sad at least at one point. I'm not saying, and obviously sadness and depression are different, but like everybody's been sad. What might make you sad might not make me sad, but we both experience sadness, whatever that trigger.
And we're linked
both
by that.
experience happiness no matter the trigger. So like we can all identify with it. Some days might have a totally different story from you, but you might experience the same emotions, but it's been a different cause. And I think one thing for me, and I always like, I've done it myself, and I know I'm like, oh, I shouldn't complain about that because somebody's always going to be worse off than you. There's always someone worse off than you. There's always people in the world that aren't fair. Like if you're born in the UK compared to people born in really third world countries, that you know, you're already off to a better start. You know, factual privilege. It is the truth. We have a lot of privilege. However, you know, it's like don't undervalue and undermine yourself. That's something we all do. I know I do it all the time, and I know everybody's like, oh, but people. If I could count the amount of times somebody said, oh, but you're in a wheelchair, I shouldn't complain, I'd be a millionaire. So why should you not complain? Because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean your experience is any less valid.
Doesn't mean you're not suffering.
And so what? If you're like, my mum had ended up cracking the front of her tooth just eating something and had to go through a period without her front tooth. She had like a wee plate to put in and she was really broken. She's like, I shouldn't be crying about this. And before the dentist could put a bridge in, and anyway, so she had a lot of stuff. And even just taking the plate out at night and seeing that, she was broken hearted. She's like, I shouldn't be saying this to you because look, you've lost your hair and look, you're now in a wheelchair. I'm like, why? It doesn't make it any less real what you're experiencing. And I was like, when I lost my hair, Mum, like I felt lost. I looked in the mirror and I wasn't me. I felt ashamed. And she's like, that's how I feel, but I shouldn't feel it. Why should you not feel like that? Why is it more acceptable for me to feel like that having lost my hair than for you feeling like that losing your tooth? How's that any different? Like, you know, it's fine. You're allowed to,
like, giving people space and grace to feel it.
And I remember saying to my mum, if this was the other way around and you had lost your hair and I lost my tooth, would you be like, Michelle, don't bother moaning about losing your tooth because I'm bald? I was like, you would never say that to me. You would never say it to someone else. So why are you saying it to yourself? Why do we do that? So it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're allowed to experience your emotions, and like you're saying, it is okay not to be okay, and it's okay to think, I'll never accept this. So you don't actually need to ever get to accept that. Doesn't need to be your goal either, but you know, sometimes we just have to be able to make it through the day, and sometimes that's as good as it gets.
One day after the other.
I was at the point that literally getting through an hour at a time was an accomplishment. And you know, like, I think for me and how I am, I used to self-harm when I was younger, and like honestly, I had the most privileged life growing up, and there's no reason for a lot of how I have been since, but at the end of the day, that's just part of me and my experience, and it's always when things are tough and difficult, and if I'm going through periods of depression, these things are always with me and they're always in my mind, and I just need to work on not acting on these things. And it's like, you know, the road to recovery, whether it be for whatever it is, like in the road to acceptance recovery, it's not always linear either, and I think that's really important to remember. You know, like, people just because you might be great you can have a bump in the road, and it's not about those bumps in the road, it's how you pick up and move on.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't pick up by yourself, sometimes you need somebody to come over and hold your hand, like metaphorically, and pick you up and help you through that, and that's okay. And you know, it's life is difficult, life is hard, and yeah, don't be harsh on yourself. People are so harsh on themselves.
I think when there's like something major that's happened in people's lives, they feel like, you know, if they do make a decision to end their life or something like that, as a result of it, they feel sort of justified. Whereas people, like you say, sort of minimise their experience when it's something smaller or something that they feel like other people would be able to cope with. So they feel a sense of shame around their decision to want to leave this world, because they think, oh well, people will think I'm daft or silly for doing it. And the thing is, like you said, there's individuals where there'll be so many as well that have gone through with it, that in their last moments regretted it and wish they could take it back. And this isn't an episode or a chat, by the way, about judging people one way or the other.
No.
I've known people who have. I've known people who have tried. I've known people who've thought about it. I've thought about it. I think there's more people out there than you would care to think about that actually think about this on a regular basis, and that would never verbalise it to anyone, because as soon as you've verbalised it, you've got everyone that you verbalised it to worrying about you, and then every conversation that they have with you becomes tied to that in some way, because in the back of their minds they're thinking, oh, she mentioned she wanted to kill herself, oh, you know,
especially if you're going through a phase where you're down or you're depressed, it's like, is she going to do it? And people have this, I think, as well. It's like, I remember when I was at uni a million years ago doing nursing, and you had like a suicide awareness chain, and it has to be delivered a certain way and a certain, but it's like, and you know, one of the biggest myths out there as well is that people are so scared to say, do you feel suicidal? And it's so true. People are scared to ask that, and people think, do you know, the thing is, if somebody's not suicidal, you won't make them suicidal because they're because they're depressed, and it's a real fear. People are like, if I mention that, am I going to make them feel suicidal? No, if somebody's not suicidal, you won't make them feel it by saying it, but do you know what you are doing? You're opening that door to a very difficult conversation when they don't know how to open the door. And sometimes, like, all you want is somebody to be like, I've wanted so much to be able to fully talk about how I felt in certain ways, and even to my husband I wouldn't, and I just wanted to, and I just wish somebody would go, but how are you really feeling? But do you feel, if somebody said, do you feel suicidal, I'd have probably broke down, but I would have told them. And sometimes just being able to say the words, I feel suicidal, it's sometimes it just lifts a weight off your shoulder. And but people are scared to ask other people, because then it's like, where do you go with that? What do you do? And everybody,
they're scared they won't know what to say. There's that thing, isn't there? Like, I think in school and throughout life we get taught how to do so many things which are fucking pointless, but we don't get taught how to have conversations with people about the things that matter. And at the end of every day, it doesn't matter what job you've got, it doesn't matter how good you are at maths or whether or not you can work out Pythagoras' theorem or whatever, none of that shit matters. But what does matter is the people that are in your life and how they feel and how you connect with them. And if they are feeling so low that they don't want to go on living anymore, that's a conversation that needs to be had, and we've never been prepared for it. So people worry that they're going to say the wrong thing, and so they don't say anything at all. And sometimes you'll notice
and they mean so
the withdrawal from
like,
if say,
and then
for example,
it makes you feel more alone, because it's like, I'll just stay away from them just now.
And then you feel isolated because they haven't had the courage to ask you. And it doesn't matter if you say the wrong thing. Like, you know what, if someone's in your life that's feeling low right now, or if you're feeling low, the benefit that can be had from someone just talking to you, and it doesn't matter what they say. Sometimes they might say it in the wrong tone of voice, they might say the wrong words, but actually the fact that they're just talking to you shows that
you're
they care.
Alone. You're not alone. You're not just an I feel crap. You're part of a wee, like, to an extent, one way
community.
Or another. And it's massive. It is massive. Like, I don't care how many people say otherwise. Like, we are social animals. We are
pack animals.
We're absolutely, like, you know, there's a reason people don't just go, oh, I'll be with someone and have kids and do whatever and have friends because it's a done thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you will have people who are kind of lone wolves, but for the most part, human beings as a species, we're designed to be with people
Yeah.
and around people, and you know, like, not just be 100% nice. There's a reason that, like, when even look at things like the prison system, people that are like really poorly behaved or whatever, and they get put into solitary confinement and they're alone, and then you hear people who've spoken about these experiences and how it's just so lonely, like, and it's overwhelming, and even the strongest, most brutal people can say when it's happened to them. Sometimes you hear some of these stories and it's like they've really really
it
made
breaks them.
And you think, wow, like,
someone who's had
That's
no
crazy.
care or thought or attention for other humans enough to be in
No.
prison at that level,
and then
still
you
are
hear
broken
them
by
talk-
confinement.
And it's like there's a reason that's a punishment, like, because it's not how we're built to be
No.
as a species. Yes, there's always going to be outliers, but in general we're not. And like, the worst thing I think as well, when you're depressed or you're really down, and the worst thing, loneliness is so debilitating and it's so overwhelming, and it's something that you do feel. So yeah, knowing you're not alone, and just speak to someone. If one of your friends feels like crap, if you don't want to ask them, do you feel suicidal, or how do you feel, and they don't want to talk, just talk to them about anything.
Yeah.
Talk about
Just
anything.
strike up
Let
a
them know
conversation.
you're there for them.
It matters so much, I think. And do you know what I love about life? That throughout life there's been so many times where people have been that person for me and they haven't even realised, and I've never told them either because I didn't want to embarrass them. But there's been one word they've said, one sentence they've said, one way that they've spoken to us, a hug that they've given, even just eye contact, like even just the right level of eye contact from someone has literally changed my perspective on an entire thing about life. Like, and it's made us feel so much better, and they'll never know, to this day they'll never know that they've done that for us. And I love that we can so easily switch up someone's mindset like that and help them through.
Even just smiling at a stranger, like,
Oh God, I play a game doing that, you know,
never
I smile
know
at
what
everyone.
somebody's going through. Like, you literally don't know how their life is, and especially some people might breeze through and you think from the outside they look fine and dandy, and the thing is, sometimes people who have been depressed or had suffered with depression for so long, you kind of become a master of disguise, and it's like you don't want empty to know, so you can massively hide it, but then you feel lonely because nobody's picking up on it, even though you're the one that's hiding it. It's like, I'm doing my best to hide it. Yes, I fooled you all.
Why don't you see this?
Why can you not see me hurting? But it's like, so do you know what? Smiling at a stranger. Maybe nobody else has smiled at them today. Maybe they feel crap. Maybe that is the person. Maybe you can literally change that person's life, and a lot of people are like, what, by smiling? Sometimes, yes, actually.
Fucking yes, exactly, by smiling.
Somebody said to me, oh, you look lovely today. One day I was out in my wheelchair and I'm like looking to see who looks lovely. And somebody's talking to me. What? Oh, thanks. And I was like, that just totally made my day. And I was like, wow, that's absolutely crazy. But yeah, it's the power that you have with, not even just with your words, even with your actions, with things like being able to smile at somebody, or like you're saying, even just eye contact, because it creates a connection there, doesn't it? When somebody
People
looks you in the
underestimate
eyes,
that so much.
oh no, and it's huge, and it's like, you might be the only person that's connected with that person for how long, you don't know. So it's amazing the power that we've got, like, to be able to help people in the tiniest way. You're not asking somebody, you're not saying, start giving, if you would do $500. Like,
no,
you know, it's like a simple smile. It costs nothing to do, and it can.
It's just showing love, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's showing love without sort of needing to get something back. Like, I smile at people, and I kind of play this game where I'll smile and I'll try and make eye contact with people, and some people might find it creepy or whatever else, like, and might not be comfortable with it. But I think the more that you can engage with the humans around you in any way, and the more you can get comfortable with that, the better you understand every single other human that you come across. So every conversation I have with you, every time I hug someone that I know, every time that I speak to someone on the phone or message someone, every interaction I have with another human is better preparing me to look after other humans. And I think when it comes to things like suicide and the idea of not wanting to be on this planet anymore, I know from working at the Samaritans, like there's a lot around this sense of hopelessness that people feel, and just not knowing what the next part of their life's going to hold. And so it does feel like the better option, not the easier option, but the better option to just go.
Just end, yeah.
Just say, okay, I'm done with this. It's kind of like leaving a party. Like, I'm not feeling it anymore, I want to leave. But
it's almost just like the pain sometimes, the loneliness, the helplessness, the hopelessness, and the unknown. Sometimes the burden of that is just so much to handle. It's not that you necessarily, it's just you don't know any other way. And it's like, how do I escape? Because that's too much for me to handle alone.
Yeah.
And I'm alone, so what do I do? Like,
and you can't escape yourself.
No, you can't escape yourself, and it's like, and how you can't lie to yourself about your feelings. You can't just say, I'm not depressed, I'm happy.
No, you can lie to other
smile.
people about your feelings, but you can't lie to yourself.
You can't. And like, sometimes it's just the burden of that is just, you just don't have the tools that you need to help you manage and get through the day and to get to a better place. And it's like you feel like you've exhausted all other avenues, and you just think, well, that's the only avenue there is, because this is too much for me to handle. And it's just not wanting to have to handle the hopelessness or the loneliness or the hurt or the pain or whatever anymore. And it's like, well, it's not that, it's almost a means to an end. The suicide's a means to an end. It's a means to escape that, rather than it's the end in itself. It's not like that is my goal. My goal is just to commit suicide because it's what I want to do. It's almost like, it's not that that's what I want to do. It's just that's the only way to escape from how I am just now.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned tools. What do you think? Like, for people who are feeling that, or who've got family members who are feeling that way right now, like having come through that tunnel, what do you think pulls people through, or could pull people through?
I think, like, for me, I find it very hard to ask for help, and I think if you can ask for help, it takes a huge amount of strength. Even just, you know, I think another big fear thing for me when I was younger, and I remember, like, this is before my spinal injury and stuff, when I was younger, and I remember being depressed, and I was scared to tell my doctor I felt depressed because I thought I'll get locked up.
Right.
I just assumed, I'll get sectioned. Why would
Seen
I get
as
sectioned?
crazy.
Yeah. And it's like, no, I won't. Like, if you don't have someone to talk to, or you do have that fear of judgment or whatever, do you know what? Go and speak to, like, your doctor, your GP, your general practitioner, and tell them how you're feeling. Like, for me, I just was like, I don't know what else to do, so I prayed. And like, I guess it's different for everybody, you know, everybody's got what they believe, what they don't believe. For me, my faith kind of really helped pull me through everything, and that's the thing that's kind of, for me, has been the answer. But again, not everybody believes in God, not everybody has, you know, if you do have a faith that helps you, like, lean into that and follow
and sometimes that faith can be faith in humanity, or faith in the fact that your life will get better at some point. It won't always be as bleak as it seems.
But I think, like, no matter who you are and where you are, like, in your life, you know, things can always get better than they are. When you're at that point that you feel, I don't want to be here anymore because it's too much, it's not going to get any worse than worse. Like, it's not going to get any worse than, if you're at the point you feel like ending your life and death, if you're at the point you feel like ending your life on this planet is a better option, nothing can get worse than you're in just now. You're literally,
so you could try
at the
anything,
lowest,
and it would still, it couldn't make it worse.
It's not an excuse. I'm not saying go and, like, turn to start like substance abuse or something, or self-medicating that way, but, like, do you know what, you're as low as you can get. See the fact that you feel that, if you feel this way right now, you're so bloody strong, because you're living the most tortuous life by being here right this second. If you hear this, you are already stronger than probably I am right now, because it's harder to even go on for a second when you feel that way than it is for me to be how I am right now. So if you can even muster the strength to be alive in the second that you're in, like, anything it can only go up. It can't go down any further. It can only go up from there. And it doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be a breeze a walk in the park and whatever else, like, you know, but speak to a doctor, like speak to and don't, like, sometimes I think I'm great at like dropping hints and nobody picks up on them, and yeah, I'm totally, sometimes I feel like I'm effectively going, hello, I'm here, I'm depressed, but actually nobody picks up on it because I've been so subtle. I might, like, it's just, so just if you can vocalise how you feel, if you doesn't want to be a friend or family, or like you're saying, if you're suicidal, there are the Samaritans. Message the Samaritans, message them. I've messaged them in the past, and then you get a message back, and like if you don't want to speak to them on the phone, or you know, email them. You don't get the instant response necessarily by email, but like reach out. You can be anonymous. You're not going to get sectioned just because you're depressed or because you feel suicidal. Like, I've been to my GP and I've said to my doctor before, even before my spinal injury, I've said, like, I feel suicidal and I'm panicking because I'm really at the stage where that's on my mind a lot and it's scaring me. I don't have plans, I've not made plans, I don't want to make plans, and I'm not going to follow through with it, but I also don't want this on my mind constantly. Like, I don't know how do I deal with this? Yeah. Like, so and I've never been sectioned, like, you know, but sometimes you just panic because you don't know what will happen, and if you've never spoken to somebody and told them you're depressed, it's normal that you're going to worry because you don't know what the outcome could be because you've not ever gone through it before. Yeah. So I would say, like, acknowledging how you feel and knowing how you feel in the first place, knowing that you are at a very low point, you've already got a tool there, that you've got, you know, you've got understanding, you've got insight, you've got insight to your emotions. That's amazing. And then it's very difficult to ask for help. So even if you don't want to say the words, please, I need help, go to a doctor and literally just say, you know, I feel like I don't want to be here, or I'm not planning on killing myself, but I also know that I'm so down right now, I don't know where to go. Yeah. There's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. Yeah. You know, like, so many people, most people will experience some form of mental health problem at some point in their life, whether it's clinical depression, whether it's anxiety, you know, whether it doesn't matter what it is. Like, everybody has something. So, you know, you're human, and you, whether you believe it or not, you're blooming well worthy of feeling better. You deserve to feel better than you feel right now. You deserve to be happier. You deserve to live the best life that's available to you. So you wouldn't say to your friends, no, can you just stay depressed because you don't deserve to be happy? You would never say that to someone. So don't do that to yourself. Like, think of, if you are really low, probably one thing, imagine that your friend was in the position you're in right now and had told you how they feel. What would you say to them? Yeah. So say that to yourself. Because I guarantee what you're saying to yourself right now is not what you would tell your friend. No. You'd be way kinder to your friend. So see, think what you would think what you would tell your friend and tell that to yourself. And it doesn't matter how strong
that works
you feel
in
doing it.
all parts of your life, that as well.
Everything. Doesn't it? Oh,
every
absolutely.
time you insult yourself, every time you think that you're not worthy, every time that you think, oh well, I don't want to bother anyone.
Take exit 43 to merge onto the A1M towards the south.
We're going to go at the A1M and merge at the south.
That's the plan.
Do you know what though, Michelle? Like, this is where it's like a mundane thing like that, right? The sat nav going off in the middle of a video. Like, you wouldn't have experienced daft little giggles, like the laughs that I've had with you. Like, we wouldn't have had those laughs together. Yeah. And that's crazy to me in my mind, that, like,
I know,
somewhere in a parallel universe where you did go ahead with that, I don't know you.
I know, and that's weird.
And I hate that parallel universe exists. Yeah. So I'm glad that I'm in this one.
Sugars.
I know.
It's weird. I know, it's crazy. It's like, I cannot imagine not seeing my kids grow up and, like, what they do with their lives. And, like, now I know, had I gone through with that, I was kind of like, oh, they might cry a bit and then they'll be fine. But I genuinely thought, oh, they'll be upset for a couple of days and then they'll be over it. No, they wouldn't. You don't lose something, go over it. But in my head, I was like such a burden that they'd be like, oh, that's a relief. Whew, good. Yeah. And then it's like, thinking now, would have put them through something terrible forever. Not deliberately, not with the intention of hurting them, but me at that point genuinely thought I was helping them because I was such a burden. And if you feel like you're such a burden, you're not. And you might not love yourself, but somebody out there loves you, and you might think they don't, but they do. And you're worth more than ending yourself. You're worth so much more than it. And it's okay that you feel that that's the only option, because sometimes that does feel like the only option. But I'm telling you, I'm not that strong a person, but if I can get through it and I can come out the other side, I know that other people can, because I'm really not that strong. So if I'm not that strong and I can get through it, I know that you can. And it's just knowing where to go, because sometimes you just don't know where to turn. And a good first stop, I would say, is probably a doctor. And don't worry about what if they look me up, what if they do this, what if they think I'm stupid, what if they send me packing. No, you deserve to be listened to, and you should be listened to and taken seriously, and you can be okay. And whatever it is you're going through, there's a community out there of other people. I guarantee you, if it's because, well, look at, like, we've met through the whole alopecia hair loss community. That to me was so traumatic when I lost my hair, so traumatic. And I'm so grateful for it now, because like then I get to meet you, and then it's like I've got to meet so many amazing people. And it also then prepared me for what I didn't know was going to happen a few years down the line, when I had my spinal injury, and then your body changes, and then I had bowel surgery, and like all those changes. And for me that was a walk in the park with the physical side of having a stoma bag, because I'm like, I've already dealt with the body image issues with my hair loss. So it kind of prepared me for, because I don't know if I could have dealt with the whole body image issues at the same time as dealing with the being physically disabled and in a wheelchair. That would have been one thing too many maybe. So I'm like, cool, that made that part easier for me. But you know, there's I don't know, like everything in life, you can't control what happens to you. It doesn't matter how much money you've got or how little money you've got. You've got no say over what happens to you in life, and you don't know either what's going to happen to you in life. What you do have control over is how you handle it. It doesn't mean that you're going to go, well, I'll accept it, so I'll be happy. Like, you're allowed to feel crap, and it's not going to be easy, but I kind of have tried to view everything with the opinion of everything that happens to me, I don't believe I'll ever be tested beyond what I've got the strength to handle. Therefore, I can handle anything that happens to me. Don't necessarily know how I will at times, but it's like, you know, I just try and think, right, everything that happens to me is an opportunity. And it's like, and I said that to them before, they're like, you think that being disabled and being ended up in a wheelchair, that's a great opportunity? And I'm like, no, well, it's not my plan, but it's an opportunity, and I can either choose to not accept it and be really bitter and be stuck in this negative space. And there are times I've been like that, and it's taken me a while to realise and get out of a negative space. Or I can choose to think, this is an opportunity. I don't know what the hell this life's trying to teach me right now, but there must be something. There must be something. There must be some sort of opportunity. And it's like, with my hair loss, I came to acceptance with that, and then ended up starting a business, which was just a wee sideline thing, which now with my spinal injury and I can't work as a nurse anymore, that's my income, is that business. And it's like, that was an opportunity that I didn't even see either. But if I hadn't tried my backside off to come to acceptance of a level with my hair loss, I wouldn't have started a business. I would have just been spiteful forever. And it's easy to see why, like, it's not like it's easy to come to acceptance with things. It's not. It's a picking struggle at times, but you know, I guess we just need to handle things and try and actively deal with things in the best way possibly.
Possible.
I'm on the accent game today. I was talking like that earlier, and now I've changed.
The Queen.
Welcome to my car.
Well, I've really enjoyed hearing about your story, because I think there's so many people out there that'll benefit from hearing it. And I think, like you said, not everyone wants to share theirs, and that's cool too. It's everyone's preference, but your bravery in sharing it, and your ability to, we've talked about this, like comedy and how you can laugh about these things, because you have to be able to. You have to be able to see the light side of of life. Like even in the darkest of moments, in the darkest of times, you've got to see the beauty in life. You've got to see the light. You've got to see the humour.
Yeah.
You've got to see the potential and the possibility for connection with people, and like you said, the opportunities.
Yeah.
Because from everything that's happened to you, there's been an opportunity that's come from it. Whether it's to learn about yourself, about the world around you, or a physical thing that actually helps your life. The way the world works, it's a funny place. We'll all go through suffering, we'll all go through joy. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's an even keel. Sometimes it feels like we suffer more than we enjoy ourselves. But one thing I know is that a lot of the suffering we go through is bettered by human connection. And that without forming those connections and looking after the people in our lives and seeking out people that are our tribe, you know, get us, that suffering would be a hell of a lot worse. So I'm glad I've met you.
Me too.
I'm really glad I've met you, me pal.
Sammy's tribe.
I wonder what we'll call it.
Sammy's sausages.
Sammy's sausages.
I don't know why sausages.
Oh.
Just goes.
Well, me podcast thing stopped recording, so I'm just gonna stop recording this
Alright,
one now.
cool. Okay.
Bye everyone.
Bye.